Bonnie, do you have 6 o'clock? Okay. All right, I'd like to call this August 8th meeting of the Planning Commission to order. Is it okay if we start with a moment of silence for Councilman Guffey and his family? Thank you. So if we could just have a moment of silence. I'm not sure if y'all know Councilman Guffey lost his oldest son, his 17-year-old son, a week and a half ago. So if we could have a moment of silence for he and his whole family, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Any changes to the agenda? Okay. We have a motion to accept the agenda. Do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor? Okay. The minutes, do we have any comments or questions on the minutes? All right. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, on to item 1, Edmonds Farm.
All right, we have one preliminary, Marion Ray, zoning planner for York County. We have one preliminary plat on the agenda tonight. It's a revision to an approved preliminary plat. The Edmonds Farm was originally approved in December of 2021. They have come back to revise their preliminary plat. If you might remember, this is the vicinity map here. This is very next Hines Road near Clover. Odd-shaped piece of land here. That leg down on the left side was zoned AGC, while the rest of the lot was zoned RUD. The developer would like to sell that leg of AGC, which is on the other side of a creek and basically unusable for the subdivision, to an adjacent property owner for their use. So they came in and revised the plat. This is the new plat. You can see the strong property line right down the middle over here. That is the zoning line. So that is the part they are wanting to divide off. There have been some other little changes to the preliminary plat. The engineering for construction, lost some lots, the roads have gotten a little bit shorter, that kind of thing. But otherwise, it's basically the same subdivision, but losing a lot of the open space. The zoning code changed since this was approved. They no longer need open space for RUD in the new zoning code. So they would have met it more than likely pretty close before. They still have plenty of it. But this is the AGC, and I made yours a little graph here, kind of showing you what's happening. And surveyors are going to hire me any minute now, I know, to do these for them. But that's the AGC section of the land. It's basically floodplain, some heavy topography, that kind of thing. So going through the findings, nothing has changed except some of the density, that kind of thing. It's going to be serviced by private well and septic, and they will be getting, there's a note on the plat that they have to have those DHEC permits before the final plat is approved. You'll notice the findings have changed a little bit. That has been part of the update in the code. It's just a little spelled out, a little different, not a big change. Number 3, proposed land use and density. Single family is allowed use. RUD does now have a zoning density. It's 1 home per acre. This development has a 0.47 units per acre, so they're well within their density. The TIA that was completed for the previous preliminary plat is still applicable. And the adequate street connectivity and pedestrian facilities. Nothing has changed. It's still being accessed from Hines Road, which is maintained by SCDOT. It's bounded on 3 sides by residential developments and that floodplain. And since the lots are at least 100 feet in width, they do not need sidewalks. The 20% open space, again, is not required due to the zoning, but they will still have 23.89 acres of open space for the residents. And then all other applicable requirements of the chapter and the zoning code have been met for this project. So staff recommends approval for the revision of Edmonds Farm preliminary plat. You have any questions for staff?
No questions of staff. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept
Okay.
the preliminary plat.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion? Okay, thank you. Item 2, rezoning 22-12.
Good evening, everybody. This is the first time on the agenda for this rezoning is case number 2212 for Calamar, RM 80. It's on Pleasant Road and includes 3 parcels. The request this evening is to rezone 3 parcels for a total of 7.5 acres from RMX 20 to RMX 6. And the reason for the request is to construct a 134-unit senior apartment complex for a density of 17.8 dwelling units per acre. The property is located on the west side of Pleasant Road, just south of Gold Hill Road, the Fort Mill area. You can see this is for the aerial for this property and for the area around it. Just to the west of that is an existing age-restricted property that has both single-family homes as well as townhomes. Across the road on the other side of Pleasant, there are 2 apartment complexes, Legacy 1 and 2. Just north of that is a couple of churches, a memory care center, urgent care area, and a variety of grocery stores, restaurants, services there. For the environmental map, there is a stream running across the southern part of the property, but the rest of the property is considered mostly flat. Zoning for the area, as you can see, it's RMX 20 right now. There's NC at the corner in the intersection of Gold Hill and Pleasant, as well as some GC. The PD, that's for the Traditions age-restricted community next to it. Site plan for the property for the proposed apartments is 134 units, and there are additional parking for the property. Future land use map, it has the property located in a neighborhood residential as the underlying designation with a neighborhood center as part of the node as well. So with that, for neighborhood residential, typically you get a medium density neighborhoods that allow for a mixture of housing types. And the neighborhood center node allows for small neighborhood level services and retail. Staff is recommending approval for this application. It does supported by the comprehensive plan as well as supported by the future land use map. And for this request, I did pull out 3 separate policies that might help to promote our case of why we believe this should be approved. The first one is that the policy recommends to have this growth within proximity to all existing and planned corridor or planned centers. This is what this is. It's within a planned center. Also to encourage to have that mixture of housing in locations that are compatible with scale, orientation, and character of the existing developments. Like I mentioned before, there are 2 apartment complexes in the area. There's townhomes nearby, and so this apartment complex would be in scale of what's around it. And then the third policy that I highlighted here was the housing policy. And as I mentioned, this project here is for a senior apartments. And therefore, the plan recommends if you do locate senior housing is to have them in areas where it's nearby library stores, places of worships. And we do have that around here. We do have grocery stores, medical facilities, and other uses that would be supportive of a senior housing complex. So with that, staff recommends approval. And I have any questions from council or commission?
What's the density of the apartments across the street?
That I do not know what the density is. It's a combination of both within the town and the county, so they probably are different. But it was developed before, I believe, we added density restrictions. Or I believe it used to be like at 18 dwelling units per acre for apartments. It was lowered to 15. So it's somewhere, getting back to that, between 15 and 18. And then once again, the southern part, Legacy 2, was built in Fort Mill, and I don't know what the density is for that one.
Okay, couple real quick things. So
Sure.
does this not have to have a plat like the one we just looked at submitted and approved as well?
That would be done on a staff level.
Okay.
So you would not be saying that. If they were to build in new roads, then as a planning commission, you would then approve road names.
Okay.
But for this, these are going to be drive aisles, and therefore, no, you do not see site plans for individual development. They're required to give us a sketch plan with the rezoning request, so to give you all an idea of a concept of what could happen on there, but you aren't approving it nor a staff.
Okay. And then what about you said 134?
134 units,
So is there any type of traffic analysis that has to be
that'll
done
be
with
done when you
that?
come time for development.
Okay. And so all
Not for
that
the
would be reviewed by you all and would not come back to us?
That's correct. It's reviewed
Okay.
by staff.
And one of the statements you had in here was that the designation provides for 2 to 5 dwellings per acre and a variety of housing types. This isn't close. I mean, this is way, way above.
Sure, it's not close, but it's also within that center. And so the center does allow for different types of units as well as higher density. And the goal of the center is to be able to utilize your higher density there and be close to your services and amenities. So we do encourage any kind of higher density to locate at centers.
Is there a number that's typically used around centers like this?
No, we don't really say that. We just take it more in terms of types of development as opposed to, and higher density, but doesn't say what the number would be. But, we do have a density requirement for apartments, and so it sort of aligns with that, and same thing for townhomes.
But once it's rezoned, there's no way to guarantee that it's senior living,
That is correct.
because then they're zoning by right, they can just put in apartments.
Sure, that is very correct. But for the senior apartments, to be able to receive that impact fee reduction or elimination essentially, is they will do deed restrictions to be able to achieve that. But you're right, there's nothing that it's going to prohibit them from doing something else.
Any further questions of staff? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve according to staff recommendations.
Do we have a second? Hearing no second, that motion fails. Do we have another motion? I'll make a motion to deny, just based on the amount of traffic in the area and what this is going to add to it. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Looks like we have the applicant here. Does anybody have a question for the applicant?
I'd like you to address the traffic.
Just a moment, sir. Since this is not a public hearing, if there are any questions specifically for you, if anybody has any questions they want to address to the applicant, we'll have you come up. Otherwise, because it's not a public hearing, we can't hear from you, but council absolutely can. So it would, even if it's denied here, goes to council, absolutely you can speak. No problems there. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
I would like to ask about the traffic.
Perfect. If you could come up, state your name and address for the record.
Good
Name-
evening. Jim Jervis, 306 Tinderbox Lane, Fort Mill, South Carolina.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead and ask your question. Turn on your,
Yeah, I just, again, some of the comments that have been made up here, that many units in the area, tell us a little bit more about how that amount of traffic volume is going to be mitigated with what you're doing.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to that. We only build senior housing, active 55 and adult above. It's going to be deed restricted. We don't allow families. There's not roommates. So 80% of our folks will have a car, 20% will not have a car. And I do traffic studies all the time aligned with our projects, and just had one completed in Huntersville, and the state didn't think we met the threshold of having to have a traffic study. We're very, very minimal on any kind of traffic implications because our folks aren't taking someone to school or picking them up. Most of them aren't going to work. Most of them are retired. So I'm fine with the traffic impact analysis, and I think that would point out that we have very little impact wherever we go with traffic.
Thank
No
you.
school impact either.
Do we have any further questions?
I have another question. I'm not sure if you can answer it, sir, or staff, but are there any plans to have a traffic light installed anywhere near this, where
No.
the new road goes in? Okay. So, and are there any plans to have any changes to the existing road?
No.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Any further discussion?
I just have one more question for Diane.
Oh, no, for Diane. Yeah, thank you.
Is there any way we can have this where it's only gonna be 55 and over? There's no other?
No, we can't offer that condition. We don't do that kind of use condition like that, so it has to, it's what it is. It's the RMX, whatever uses are allowed in that district.
So they could build and say it's 55 and over and can be converted overnight?
Yes. And Mike, I can go ahead and ask some of your questions there too. The TIA will be completed. They will definitely meet the thresholds based upon what the county standards are, so there will be a Tier 2 TIA for this. And I do know that there is an intersection there at the intersection of Gold Hill and Pleasant, where there are current mitigation requirements to be able to add a turning laning. And we haven't done the TIA yet, but I would not be surprised if they will be helping to mitigate the cost of installing that turn lane. We don't know for certain, but there will be some mitigation required, I would imagine, from this use. If the TIA proves out that it's enough trips to generate that. And with that number of units, I would, they do rate senior housing a little bit lower for trip generation than you might find for a regular market rate apartments. That is given a rate reduction based upon that.
And it's usually not during rush hour, which is nice.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, and the other concerns I had around that is having parents that are getting up in age, is how older people are going to be able to navigate that, depending on how much traffic's coming through. That was the reason for the question about, is there going to be any formalized traffic control?
Because turning left out of there is going to be difficult.
Right, right.
Yeah. So there's nothing we could do to say no left turn out of there, a median there?
You did put a condition on another rezoning. It was for the restaurant on 160 that said there could be no left turn. It was right in, right out only. You have done that, and you can do that.
So that is an option,
That is
okay.
an option.
Because senior housing is definitely something we need in the area. We see it all the time, but my concern is turning left out of there is a nightmare.
And either that, or if we could have full traffic control there some way, shape, or form.
I think you're too close to the other light.
And I
For
don't
another
know.
light.
I'm
You're
saying
pretty
if-
close to the light at Gold Hill and
Yeah, I don't
Pleasant.
believe you're going to get a light
Yeah,
there.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think you're too close. It's going to mess
If you're looking for
everything.
that relief, you're not going to get it
Yeah,
there.
no. I think the best you can hope for is no left out of there.
That's correct.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'm going to retract my motion. We needed a motion so we could have discussion.
Okay.
So since there is no motion on the table, now we've had discussion. Do we have another motion?
Again, I would like to make a motion to approve with the stipulation of the no left turn.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? You look like you want to say something.
2 4 meal people here.
I know.
No, I'm good.
Okay, all in favor of approval with the condition for no left turn?
Because, it goes to council.
All opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Rezoning 22-20.
Can I request
Oh,
a moment, a pause, while we take care of our issues with our technology? I need my screens. I'm sorry, I've got it in my head, but not that well, and I think you'll benefit from having
we'll take a
pictures.
break until the screens
Thank
come
you.
back up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, looks like we're ready to start back up, so back to
Interesting.
case 2220.
All righty, thank you for that pause. It's case number 2220 for Darren Nichols, Nichols Store on Mount Holly Road. This is rezoning to request to rezone 3 parcels for 6.77 acres from RSF 40 and NC to GC. And the purpose for this rezoning is to be able to have additional parking and an 11,000 or so square foot building for retail, office, and storage for the existing business. The applicant is also rezoning the existing business, that building, right, that parcel, because it currently sells golf carts, and that's not an allowed use in the NC zoning district. And so the applicant had the option to not sell golf carts or rezone it to GC, and he chose to rezone it to GC. Property is located on Mount Holly Road, just northwest of the interchange with I-77. As you can see the existing Nichols business, and the parcels, the 2 parcels next to it both have homes on them. I believe they're rentals. They will all be demolished for the construction of the parking as well as the new buildings. Also around here is a church and some baseball fields. Still mostly single-family areas around here. Environmental map. This is a relatively flat piece of property. There's no environmental issues. I'm zoning for the area. So the property here is NC. That's the Nichols property. 2 properties around that are the RSF 40. The majority of the area is RSF 40 or RUD. Here's a site plan for the proposed new area. You can see the existing Nichols store, as well as the additional parking and the 2 new buildings. This will all then be, if it was rezoned to GC, combined into 1 parcel. The comprehensive plan has this area here as being single-family residential, but also within a rural center node. We don't have many rural center nodes that we come before you guys. So as you've seen before, single-family residential is typically detached housing, either rural or suburban in character. That's that land designation. And the rural center nodes are areas that function as a small-scale civic and commercial centers for the rural areas. And so if you're thinking about centers, you have rural centers, neighborhood centers, commercial community centers. It's the scale of that. This is the smallest scale one that we have for the nodes. Staff is recommending denial for this request. The GC zoning district is not appropriate for this location. It allows for a scale intensity much greater than the plan would actually recommend. And I've listed here a few things you can do in GC that you cannot do in NC. Things like gas station, hotels, liquor stores, boat and RV stores, and self-storage facilities are all uses you can do in GC, but not in NC, which may not be appropriate for this location here. Also, in NC, you're limited to a certain building size, but in GC, you do not have that restrictions. And so it goes to show a more intensive, bigger use in the GC zoning district. Once again, recommend denial. If you have any questions for staff.
Yeah. So would you say, though, that the plan that they would propose would actually bring it more into conformity versus what it is right now?
Yes, if they rezone this property, it would then be conforming, correct?
And I guess this is just a question. Do they actually sell golf carts? Because I've driven by there plenty
Yes,
of times.
they do.
For golf courses, like for
Golf carts, they sell golf
r-
carts. If you go on their website, you'd see them. They have plenty of them. If you look on the aerial photo, I can show you where they keep them. Most of the area that's, and I'm sorry if you're not going to, I'll show it over here. This area here is where they store all their
Okay.
golf carts.
So
And that's
this-
defined in the code as being a vehicle. So vehicle sales and services includes all kinds of vehicles, including golf carts.
So is this grandfathered in? They just need to rezone to allow expansion, or?
No, this was not grandfathered in.
Okay.
This is not a legal conforming.
Okay.
They started this use after we had zoning. It was never permitted. It was never allowed.
Okay,
in the building, so the building they propose and the house they're gonna convert would really that's not, would you say it's an expansion of the retail business, or is it like, kind of like a supporting?
It depends upon how they utilize that building. I believe it's going to be retail, office, and storage is how it's listed on the application.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about the applicant in a second, but with the rezoning of this, so if we don't rezone, they have to stop a part of their business that they are currently doing, which is the selling of the golf carts. Is there any other part of their business that would be stopped if they're not in legal conformity? What else is out of conformity? Just the golf carts?
Just the golf carts. And I went through their website and what they actually do. Every other use is allowed with the exception of the golf
So
carts.
let me just ask this so I can get it in my head. What's the difference between a golf cart and the hunting vehicles that are sold? And
They sell those as well.
yeah, but what's the difference
Well,
between
that's
a
the
golf
same
cart?
thing.
and
I
that?
just put the golf cart. I could have put ATVs as well.
Okay.
But I put the golf carts because I could really see those on the website, but they also on the website sell ATVs and other vehicles as well.
Which are not legal
Not
conformity.
legal either.
So the only thing that's legally conforming would be the weapons and things that are sold in the inside?
Right, all their retail uses, those are all legal. That's the majority of what they do, is their retail as well as the golf carts and ATVs. So yeah, the gun sales is all legal, all that is fine. The restaurant they have there, that's legal. It's just that part of the vehicle sales is not legal.
Okay. And the two structures that are currently on the property that they're trying to rezone will be torn down and basically just expanding the parking lot and expanding their building?
That's correct, yeah. On the two other parcels that are currently RSF 40, they will demolish those buildings, expand the parking, and then build them new buildings as well. Like that site plan was showing. So this here is the existing buildings right here for this nickel store. They will expand this parking area. Imagine that was turned over, and then demolish the homes and then build these two future buildings at some point. The biggest issue they have right now is parking.
So this would so a rezoning would fix the golf cart issue, the parking issue, and probably even like truck loading and all, because I'm sure, that, right now, trucks probably park in the middle of the parking lot.
Sure, the rezoning will take care of the issues about nonconforming. It will provide an opportunity to be able to expand their parking, both true, but it does not comply with the comprehensive plan. And so now what you have is a property that's zoned GC, that in the future could be something else. It may not be appropriate. Maybe Nichols is fine. In the future, maybe not. This could also then, once you rezone this to GC, you signal GC is okay in this area here. Maybe it goes further. Maybe you continue the GC out beyond that. So you're sort of setting that turning of the land uses to something more intensive than what the plan is adopted would actually allow.
Okay, just real quick. So we're not allowed to keep it NC and make an exception saying you can sell these types of vehicles in this size.
That's a use condition. You cannot do that.
So the use conditions have tied our hands in that we can only go one of these two ways. If we either deny completely or we agree completely. We're
That's
not able to
correct.
put any stipulations like we did talking about turning lanes and things in the previous one.
Right. You can do conditions that are actually going to improve how it functions or what it might help the neighbors, buffers, road, the left in only kind of things.
Okay.
But as far as the use goes, you cannot condition a use.
Okay, and has it been under the NC designation the entire time?
Yes.
Okay,
Let me ask another question.
I knew you weren't done. Go right ahead.
I've been consistent my past 2
That's
years,
right,
and
bro.
I just, a private business out on his land trying to expand, to do more commerce and pay more taxes. I would have a hard time voting not to approve this. The people who live near this area where we're trying to expand, I assume they were noticed to be here. Has staff heard any objection from the neighbors of expanding his parking lot or selling the golf carts or anything
Sure.
else?
So the way the process works, they don't know yet.
Okay.
Because they won't know until we have public hearing. And that's the purpose of that. The public hearing is when the people will come out and speak to that. The planning commission would address to what the plan says, what should go in the area. If the people speak out against it, they'll go to council. and speak out for or against it at that moment. So we're looking at what the plan says. The people don't know yet.
Thank you.
Could they go before the ZBA to get
You cannot do a use variance at ZBA.
You can't,
No,
okay.
ma'am.
All right. Any further questions of Diane?
I have a motion.
All right. Did you want to ask the applicant a question if they were here?
Yeah, it's here.
The applicant is here.
Yeah, I would
Did you
like-
have a question? You need to turn your mic on.
Sorry.
If you could step up, state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Darren Nichols. I own a nickel store in Rock Hill.
And Mr. Nichols, how long have you been at that location?
So I purchased the business from my father in 1989. And when I purchased it, it was a convenience store slash grocery store slash meat market slash gas station slash, we had everything.
Okay,
He started the business, he bought it from Mr. Hare back in 1968. Same thing. It was a meat market, it was everything that a local community needed. And I just picked up and I made the transformation in 1989 into more of the sporting goods arena. But we carried the hunting vehicles, the electric bike, whatever. We kind of catered a little bit to everybody, but I'm not planning on putting a hotel. I just need safety. I need more parking. I need what I currently do. I
Right.
just feel like I'm somewhat handcuffed to right now from what I used to do. And I mean, deer processing, which there again, I shut it down a year ago myself due to some of my health conditions, and I can't be around some of it. But it's been there for, we processed deer for the last 40 years. At any rate, I'm not looking to continue keeping up with that, but I mean, I just want a nicer parking area, safer parking area, and a nicer warehouse, and like you mentioned a while ago, the trucks coming in and out. We don't have the capacity for that right now.
right, right.
Thank you. Any further questions of the applicant? Thank you, sir.
All right.
All right. Do we have a motion?
I do have a motion. I make a motion that we reject staff's recommendation and that we approve the applicant's plan as he has submitted it.
I'll second.
And I'll second.
Any further discussion?
I mean, I'm just gonna go on the record and say, if this was a vacant site, I would likely be denying it. But it's already there, and the improvements would bring the site more into conformity versus what's there now. So I think swinging it in the right direction versus, what could be there, I think,
And I concur with Matt and will add his eloquent explanation to my motion.
Yeah, and it's not gonna have a negative impact on the business too, so.
Any further discussion?
Ditto.
All in favor? All right, thank you. Rezoning 2223. And any of you, if your item has already come up and you want to leave, you certainly are welcome. You don't have to stay for the whole meeting.
This is rezoning case 2223 for Melanie Tinkler Stock on Leslie Highway and Willwood Circle. The request is to rezone portions of two parcels from RMX 20 and RSF 40 and RSF 40 to RMX 20. The applicant is recombining portions of the two parcels, and they have different zoning districts. And because that is not allowed, it's prohibited by the zoning ordinance to be able to have dual zoned. The properties must be rezoned, or the portions of that, to be able to match how the recombination is going to work. Properties are located off of Leslie Highway and Willwood Circle. There's one much larger property, mostly treed, it's vacant, And the other one is a much smaller parcel just over here. It's one single-family home on there. The majority of the property, the larger one, is flat. It slopes back to a creek, western part of the property. So I'm showing here, and I'll zoom in a little bit more if I need to, but you can see where the areas in blue, it's what is being rezoned. And they're switching from what they currently are, either RSF 40 to RMX 20, or RMX 20 to RSF 40. And we'll see if this is gonna help. There will be some property realignment over here. And this larger piece over here, this RMX RSF 40, this area here is gonna go to the property to the south. And so this has to then match that zoning code. This area here is currently not zoned properly. This large property already is dual zone. So this is gonna become RMX 20. This area here is owned by this property, is gonna become part of their property, and it's gonna go from RMX 40, RSF 40 to RMX 20. Got that? So it's basically, it's to be able to help out the two property owners to be able to do some land swaps to make better parcels for everybody else. That's what it comes down to. So the comprehensive plan here shows neighborhood residential, which calls for 2.5 dwelling units per acre and some small-scale commercial with the intersection of major roads. Staff is recommending approval for this application here. It's going to allow, like I mentioned, improve access points, better lots, and removes existing dual zone parcels. Any questions for staff?
It's a lot of work for a couple slivers.
You know it is.
Are there any questions for staff? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Thank you. All right, on to rezoning 22-25.
There was no conditions. Oh, there was. Was there conditions? We'll get that at council. Next one is rezoning case 2225 for Cato Land Development. This is properties on Deerfield Drive and Springfield Parkway. This is to amend an existing PD. It's the Cato Southbridge PD. And there are two portions, there are two parts of this PD amendment. The first one is to remove an internal conceptual street in Development Area 2. And then as a result of that is to amend the transportation access note to strengthen the language to make sure that we get pedestrian connections between all the uses within all the development areas. And the applicant is proposing to develop a residential portion of this PD, and the internal street connection, they want to have that removed on the PD plan for their development. So here are the parcels that are involved in this very large PD. I think it's like 377 acres. Remember, it's the old Knight Stadium. Here's an aerial of the property. Right now, we've only had so far that since I think 2016 this was approved, one parcel has been developed. That's the Round Point Mortgage. The rest of it is still vacant. Oops. Oh,
The end.
one moment. So the Cato property is much larger than what I'm showing here, but for the environmental part, I've zoomed in on just the section that we're going to be talking about, just to kind of highlight the areas here. And you can see the topo that's through here is pretty steep, and there's also a creek and a floodplain that travel through here. So that road was going to be coming in through here. This is the area that we're really focusing on for this amendment here. Here's zoning for the area. As you can see, the entire thing here is PD, with the exception of, there's a couple of little internal parcels that were not part of the PD. This is located within a town center, also an I-77 corridor employment center. And so what is that? You've seen before the I-77 corridor, and that's to be able to attract large industries. In this PD, when it came forward, that's what it's supposed to do. It's entitled to have over 4 million square feet of office space, 400,000 square feet of retail, and about 600 homes can go in this planned development, which is what a town center is. And so this use here is for a town center. But part of that is to make sure it contains a network of connected streets, pedestrians, and bicycle ways, and plazas, and parks and plazas. And that's a component of the actual town center. So this is, once again, this is the overall PD plan. The area in the oval is what we're going to be focusing on in just that section right now where that street connection is. So coming down into that, you can see on the map, there is supposed to be a road that would connect Deerfield Drive over to Springfield Parkway. And this would provide some additional access points and crossroads through what could develop here and could develop here. Because of the topo and the environmental conditions, the applicant's requesting us to remove that requirement to be able to have that road there. And we can get that, we understand. When they did that first PD, they didn't have the information they have now. They didn't go out there and check the topo as close as they are right now, but in the development process, they realized that the road probably wouldn't work here. However, it's important for staff to make sure that we maintain that connections. If you're not going to build a road, we want to make sure that you have a pedestrian connection that will connect whatever uses happen within that development area. And so we asked the applicant to revise this section, this note on the PD notes plan, to make sure that we can require them to put in a pedestrian connection where that road is being removed. Now, this note here will apply to all areas of the PD and not just to development area 2. And that is to make sure that we're gonna, all these uses as required, as necessary, as what makes sense to be able to have a pedestrian connection as well as a vehicle connection. So the applicant agreed to make the change to the note. Staff recommends approval for both of these amendments. Like I mentioned, there are facts that came forward in the development process that we know now that would make that road difficult to be able to achieve. But they're also recommending the importance of pedestrian connection and have agreed to add that amendment. Any questions of staff?
Real quick, if you could go back 2 slides real quick to that little summary. Okay, so.
That one?
With
Okay.
that road coming out, what will go in that area? Do you have a plat or something that shows
Sure.
what their plans are for that area?
Which road? The connection onto Springfield or the connection onto Deerfield?
The one that's being removed, right? So what's basically gonna go in this development area too?
Right, so it's, the full development area 2 is still being worked out. I will
Okay.
tell you that we have a request or a site sketch plan for this area right here, which will be townhomes, which is an allowed use in the PD to be able to bring some residential part of this mixed-use component. And they are allowed to do townhomes here. The PD does allow up to 600 residential units. They're doing much fewer than that. And just the townhomes, they could do apartments, they chose to go with townhomes. I would imagine this area here will be the retail component. Given that road frontage, the visibility, this will be retail. So what staff wants to see is to make sure we have some connection between these future residences and that retail. And a pedestrian, if will be, is that all we get? We must have that.
Okay, thank you.
So, just so I'm clear, so there could be a street connection, but this is just taking the mandate for this street connection out.
Theoretically, there could be, but they're just, the topography will not allow it to happen in a way that makes it make sense.
So in taking this out, and one of the things you asked was to ensure there's pedestrian connections unless it's impossible.
Sure.
Any further questions of staff?
And the applicant is here if you have any questions of the applicant.
All right, hearing no further questions, do we have a motion?
I would make a motion to approve with staff's recommended note changes as shown in Exhibit F.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, excellent. On to 22-26.
Okay, this is 22-26 for Tim Heline on Hines Road in Clover. This is the request to rezone one parcel and a portion of another parcel for a total of about 14.5 acres from AGC to RUD. And the purpose of this is the applicant is requested to subdivide property that has dual zoning districts. And so in order to do that, they must get everything back to one district. So the property is located at the ends of Hines Road. This area here is what you just approved for Edmonds Farm. That preliminary plat is right there. It's this area right here that they're going to be actually having to rezone. The parcel here is mostly wooded, the large pasture and a pond. And once again, it is two parcels. The second one is this really tiny piece up here, which is essentially just a driveway. Topography or the environmental conditions, yep, there's creeks, there's floodplains, there's a pond. So for the zoning, this might help you see where it's being rezoned. The area here that's AGC, all this dark green here, and this little piece here is all requested to go to RUD to make all this parcel here one zoning district. And then the end of the day, they want to be able to subdivide this into 3 parcels. The comprehensive plan for the area is single-family residential, which is typically rural or suburban character for low-density houses. Also, some low-density commercial can be in the area. Staff is recommending approval for this request. It's compatible with the land use pattern of the area. Like I mentioned, they just had Edmonds Farm just to the south of that area, and it also eliminates dual zone parcels, the steps of that dual zone parcel. Any questions from staff?
Hearing no questions, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Any questions or comments on the tracking sheet? No? Okay. Do we have a motion to move into executive session? Oh, are you striking that?
Yeah, so that you will see on your agenda at every agenda. It is
Okay.
there as a placeholder. And if we need to include it, we have it there. If we have the item ahead of time, we will include it in there. But we've been asked to have that on every agenda to meet legal requirements.
Perfect. Glad to hear it. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? We are adjourned.